the signal. Good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Very, very pleased to be joining you for this session of the Transforming Transportation conference. My name is Renaud Seligman. I'm the Director for Strategy and Operations in the Planet Vice Presidency, which deals with climate, environment, water, and agriculture. So you might wonder why I'm here today, and it's really because transportation runs through all of these topics. And it is in the collaboration between the transport sector and all of these sectors that I was just talking about that we will find the jobs of tomorrow, and that we will create the opportunities for growth and prosperity. Jobs are at the heart of today's development challenge. Over the next decade, 1.2 billion young people are going to come to the labor market. And they expect to join the global workforce in developing countries. Yet, the forecast is that at the pace that our economies are currently growing, only 400 million jobs are going to be created. So you have a gap of 800 million where people will be ready to work, but they won't find employment that matches their skills and what they can bring to the economy. That's a problem. It's a problem for development. It's a problem for stability. It's a problem for unwanted migration. It's a problem that collectively we have to try and solve. And it's not just the number of jobs, it's also the quality of jobs and the income that you get from those jobs, and whether we can do better in terms of income generation. So the World Bank Group has identified 5 sectors where we see opportunities to help bridge that gap. And agriculture is one of those sectors. But it also includes high value manufacturing, health, infrastructure, and tourism. In all of these areas, transportation is a critical ingredient to try and create jobs and improve incomes. Specifically in the case of agriculture, we have launched during the last annual meetings the AgriConnect initiative, which aims to lift 300 million farmers from subsistence to surplus by strengthening their connections to markets and to value chains. And in order to strengthen that connection to markets and value chains, obviously transportation and logistics are an essential ingredient. They are really, we're talking about inseparable systems, right? You cannot develop a value chain, a food-related value chain, without transport and logistics. If you think of, from anything from cashew nuts to dairy, right? You produce it in the field, the cows produce the milk, but then you have to ensure they are transported, that the cold chain is maintained. You have to ensure that the nuts are processed and that they make their way to markets, domestic or export markets. So we're talking about a connective tissue that links the farmers to markets, links the households to food security, and helps communities also to be resilient in the face of shocks, including the increasingly frequent extreme weather events that come from climate shocks. When rural transport fails, agriculture pays a high cost. Post-harvest losses, we estimate that food loss and waste represents between 20 and 30% of the output on the farm. It's a huge inefficiency. Rising logistics costs, reduced farm incomes, and ultimately higher food price for consumers. And it's very relevant right now when, because of the situation in the Middle East, we are seeing already a spike in the price of oil, but also an induced effect on the price of fertilizers, sulfur, all sorts of ingredients that translate into higher food costs for consumers, especially for the poorest and most vulnerable consumers, children and women, smallholders and remote communities. So we need to think of farm to market roads as a development multiplier. If they are well designed, if they are well maintained, if they are climate resilient, they really reduce vulnerability to floods, extreme weather events, and sustain agricultural value chain. So collaboration really matters with this sector. Between ag and transport investments, we need to ensure that we think about these things together, that we think about where to put public money or bring in private money in a way that maximizes the impact on jobs, on incomes, and on nutrition outcomes. So today we will focus on the how governments, how communities, how development partners and the private sector can jointly design, but also finance and maintain those rural transport systems that really deliver inclusive, gender equitable, and climate resilient agricultural growth. And to tackle those issues, I'm joined by a really distinguished panel, which I will now introduce. So from my right, Ansu Tumba-Hongfe is head of Track for Change at Helvetas, which leads global efforts to institutionalize scalable, climate resilient rural access solutions, draws on decades of experience from Nepal and across Africa and Asia. Ansu, welcome to the panel. Let's give her a round of applause. Let me go to my left, Mohammed Nawaz Sohu, Secretary of Works and Services in the government of Sindh, province of Pakistan. Mohammed will offer a government perspective on coordinating infrastructure and agriculture priorities in flood-prone and climate-vulnerable contexts. We still, of course, remember the terrible floods in Pakistan a few years ago. Very tragic. Ramadan Mubarak, by the way. And then to my right, we have Abi Noriega, Chief Impact Officer at FICA, which specializes in measuring how rural connectivity investments translate into real outcomes for agriculture, for women, for underserved communities. And it does that through data-driven and user-centered design. So Abi, welcome. Then to my immediate left, Mr. Dong Liu is Deputy Director General at the Ministry of Transport of the People's Republic of China. Dong brings deep expertise in national transport planning, in green transport development, and how to sustain large-scale rural road networks. Of course, China has a very vast network, and it'll be really interesting to hear your perspective. Dong, welcome. And last but certainly not least, Humphrey Kanyenye is Manager for Urban Roads and World Bank Programs at the Tanzania Rural and Urban Roads Agency called TARURA. Humphrey brings hands-on experience in aligning large-scale rural road expansion with agricultural access and community-based maintenance systems. So we'll talk both about the design of the system, but also how we maintain it over time in a cost-effective manner and in a way that doesn't translate into a never-ending cycle of build, neglect, and rebuild, which unfortunately we have seen in the past. Very good. So let's dive right in. And let me start with you, Mr. Dong Liu, if you don't mind. I would like to start with a country of China's scale, right? So more than 1 billion inhabitants, very vast territory. You have many competing priorities. And you need to decide which rural areas to develop first when it comes to your rural transport network. From a comprehensive planning perspective, how do you ensure that rural road development will actually support the wider agricultural development agenda and job creation, income amelioration, right? So how do you ensure that when you think about transport, you align with the broader objective of agricultural and rural development? Over to you, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a great honor to share with you the story of China's rural roads development. You have asked me questions. I think I will reply them in the following speech. There is an old saying in China that if you want to get rich, you should build the road firstly.
I think everyone here will agree with that. Yeah.
in China, we have constructed a network of rural roads in the past decade. The rural roads are the primary and the only access to the rural areas. So it's very important for the villagers. By the end of 2025, the length of rural roads has surpassed 4.7 million kilometers in China. As you have said, it's a great network in China, accounting for more than 80% of the total road length in China. China has now met the goal that all of the administrative villages where conditions are low have access to paved roads. I think it's a remarkable transformation in the past years. Here, I will show you two cases in China. The first one comes from Abuloha village. It's a small village in the west of China, Sichuan province. In the native language, Abuloha means that people rarely visited.
Right. It says it's all in the name, yeah.
The village is surrounded by the high mountains over 3,000 meters. Before, the villagers should walk for about 3 or 4 hours. In the 2020, a new road was constructed in this village. Now the villagers come out of the village only 10 minutes ride by car. Travel in this village is not a big problem, no longer. The second example is from Keqiao district in Zhejiang province, an eastern province in China. Over the past decade, the Keqiao district development of a new mode of integration, passenger ride, and postal delivery service in together. The district has invested more than 10 billion yuan to upgrade the new roads. About 574 new roads was constructed. The new mode helps the people lived in the rural areas use the passenger buses to deliver goods and parcels. Now, even in the remote areas of the district, a parcel can be delivered within 24 hours. Also, by integrating the transportation with the tourism and the local industries, the villagers' incomes have increased. Their houses have been revitalized and leading to employment for over 9,000 people in these areas. Last year, this case was selected for the 2025 Global Sustainable Transport Best Practices released by the United Nations.
And we see on the slide that between 21 and 25, investment in rural roads exceeded $300 billion. So we're talking a very material amount of money. And I guess the question is, how do you ensure that that money goes to
Yeah.
the right places, right? How do you choose where to put it?
I think we have a plan. China have a history of long-term and medium-term plan.
Yes.
For example, from 2021 to 2025, we have a 5-year plan. How many roads in rural areas should be constructed, and the fund is come from where? We have some investment from the central government and the local government together. I can give you some numbers. In the past 5 years, the investment in China's rural roads has reached more than $300 billion. I mean, not China, RMB. About 60 billion per year. The plan also helped helped the people to get rich by tourism, local industry, and etc. Also, they help the farmers to make money. For example, in the rural areas, we employed about 80,000 rural workers in the construction of the road. In the maintenance of the rural road, we created 770,000 jobs per year. Local farmers can get salary near to their home and not in the village, not in the city, but only in the village they can get the incomes. So I think these are the practice and the insights from China I can share with you.
Thank you, Dong. This is very, very interesting and impressive. Let me ask you this, in your plan, right? So you have certain objectives, let's say, of development of certain agricultural value chains or some tourism poles that might exist. How do you ensure a good coordination between ministries, right? So that you're in the Ministry of Transport, but you all have colleagues in Ministry of Agriculture, you have colleagues who deal with tourism. How do you ensure that it all comes together so that the $60 billion per year that you're investing actually goes to places where they're going to have the maximum benefit for the communities? And how do you arbitrate between competing priorities?
I think the construction of rural roads in China is a joint effort between different ministries. You have said perhaps ministries of several ministries.
Yes.
Perhaps there are several different funds, but we can join the fund together to construct the rural roads. And also I have introduced the experience of the combination of rural transportation and delivery, express delivery, and also the tourism, and also the local industry. We can find a way to unite our
to integrate
efforts.
Yeah, no, very good. And I know you need to leave a little bit early, so let me ask you another question on the private sector. Have you been able in this with these 60 billion in financing for rural roads every year? Have you been able to identify some innovative financial mechanisms to bring in the private sector? And also to ensure the long-term sustainability of the network, because if you build that network, then it also needs to be maintained. Yes. That's expensive. So what works to do that?
Okay, yeah, it's a great demand for the rural road construction and the maintenance. It's a big problem for us.
Yes.
Also, too. But we have several funds. For example, mainly the construction of the rural roads supported from central government is a vehicle purchase tax. Almost 3000 亿这是多少？300 billion yuan RMB per year.
Wow.
But I mean, perhaps 50% will spend on the rural areas.
Yes.
For the maintenance of the rural roads, it's fuel tax. I think perhaps more than 22 200 220 billion yuan. I think it's for the maintenance. And other levels of government, the local government also spend some to construct and maintain the road.
That's all public sector, but is there also some private sector participation?
I think perhaps it's a main source from the public sector because the rural roads are free, no
so
profitable.
There's no revenue source.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you so much. I think it gives us a sense of the scale, both of the challenge, but also of the investments that are being made. Let me pivot from China to Pakistan and turn to you, Mohammed, and to ask you, taking the perspective of government, you also are facing some similar issues. But what institutional mechanisms do you think work to actually coordinate agriculture and infrastructure priorities so that you don't get into a situation where, let's say, you have a really important value chain that you're trying to develop in the agriculture sector, let's say, the wheat or maize or, some kind of high value crop that you are developing, horticulture or whatever it is, or aquaculture for that matter. And then you build the network somewhere else where that activity is not happening. You're not taking into account, what are going to be some of those needs. What has worked in your experience, and where do these arrangements break down, right? Where do those coordination failures come into play? So how can we help to strengthen that coordination across ministries, please?
Thank you very much. Before embarking upon the question you have asked, I must thank the team which invited us and gave us opportunity to be here. And in addition to that, in 2022 floods, the whole nation was suffering and we were really in trouble. I was also on ground in those days. But on behalf of Government of Pakistan and Government of Sindh, I thank you, World Bank. They were very quick in helping us for the reconstruction of houses. And that project is now one of the largest housing projects in the world, Sindh People's Housing Foundation. Similarly, they also helped us in constructing the rural roads. That project is ongoing. Before coming to a question, I must tell the audience that Sindh is the second largest province of Pakistan, and it has 56 million souls to feed. But it has inherent geographical challenges. If it rains in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or in Punjab or in Balochistan, Sindh is at tail end. It has to suffer. And the Indus River, that is one of the largest rivers of the world, and that is the lifeline of the province of Sindh, that almost passes into the center of the province, but on its right bank and on its left bank. We have, on its left bank, we have a desert.
Yes.
and on its right bank, desert plus mountains.
Mm.
So either we are, because of global warming and climate changes, either we are in drought
Mm.
and desertification
Or you're in flood.
or in floods.
Yes.
So that's the double jeopardy, double whammy we are facing at the moment as a nation.
And unfortunately, you're not alone there. You know,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
hearing
you're
more
right.
and more countries that are in similar
Pakistan is one
situations.
of the top, it is unfortunate, most 10 vulnerable
Yes.
countries, and having almost no contribution in GSGs, but we are suffering
Yes.
for the contributions of our other nations. We are suffering, the country is suffering. Having said that, you are all aware that I joined civil service in 2005. I've been facing the challenge of floods, in 2008, in 2010, I was on ground in 2010, floods, how the river embankments broke and how they devastated our agriculture and our road network, our houses, 2010 super floods. And then we faced, and that flood almost washed away the infrastructure of road, schools, hospitals of the right bank. And in 2011, we faced rain floods. 2012, we faced rain floods. And those rain floods destroyed our infrastructure on left side of the bank. And in 2019 and 22, 20 and 22 floods are, everyone remembers those floods. We were unable to come out of the effects of the floods of 2010, 2019, and 2020 than the onslaught we faced in 22. And that has, pushed us to the wall. The climatic change, that our infrastructure, a country being a developing country, has no resources to build a climate resilient infrastructure. So the infrastructure, our infrastructure suffers always. Our answer is only to, the firefighting response is there. So our people are suffering. And in 2022 floods, the losses of, which were initially calculated with $30 billion, $10 billion were committed by the international community. But we only received less than $2 billion. The rest of the challenge is being faced by the nation from its meager resources. But we are trying. Despite all this, the government of Sin is spending a lot of money on building the roads, and the priority is rural roads. Mm-hmm. We have been able, if I calculate the kilometers of road of this current dispensation from 2008 to 2025, 24,148 kilometers of district roads, which are primarily farm to market roads, have been added, improved, some of them constructed, renovated, because the effects of floods were to be met. And more than 25,000 kilometers of roads were, some of them were constructed, rehabilitated, and reconditioned, even widened from the provincial setup. We have multiple, in addition to my department, multiple agencies to construct roads in rural and urban areas. So from my department, these were the roads which were constructed from 2008 to 2025. As you asked that challenges, we face several challenges. One of them, the institutional challenges we have. We are in the phase of having a coordinated, integrated planning. That's a big challenge for us as a province. But we are working on that, particularly after the floods of 2022. We are engaging the line departments like irrigation department,
Right.
agriculture department, and even in some cases forest department, when we take the initiative of rebuilding or reconstructing the road or the new construction of road. Our planning and development department takes lead in that, and they ask for input from the irrigation department so that we should be building the climate resilient infrastructure on ground, because they are the infrastructure of irrigation suffers a lot
Yes.
during the floods and such emergencies. So primarily we consult with the irrigation department, and now we feel that the agriculture department is very important. Agriculture being the lifeline of the province, that is the largest source of GDP for us. Now we are thinking, and we have no other way except consulting the department. But incidentally, or with some planning, in sense infrastructure, particularly the road infrastructure, the lower part of Sindh, that has good agriculture, and I'm glad to tell that the road network in these areas is good, that is integrated, and our agriculture produce gets opportunity to reach the market timely, particularly sugar cane. We have a large network of sugar industry in the lower parts of Sindh. Luckily, we have a good infrastructure for catering for their needs, and we have orchards like mango orchards and fruits and vegetables. So that part that feeds the entire province, and in some cases to the upper parts of the country, because it's so agriculturally rich. That helps the entire province, and in some cases the country, and it generates thousands of jobs.
Yes.
In every season of the crop. That also has a large number of livestock also. If I quote Tharparkar district of my province, it feeds the needs of more than 25% of meat needs they come from the Tharparkar district. But the infrastructure there that was built because of the coal reserves we have in Tharparkar, 195 billion tons of coal reserves we have. So the government of Sindh that built the road network, that is complementing every other sector now.
Right.
Primarily, those roads were constructed for the facilitation of coal and industry, coal power generation. But now it is helping us in transportation of livestock, agricultural produce, bringing our women to the schools, giving them the job opportunities. So this is how we are doing there in Sindh. But as far as coordination is concerned, that's a big, little bit challenging and difficult. But we are trying to cope up with that challenge. And for that, I shall be requesting this forum that our province needs to be helped technologically, and with the experience of, like you were talking about Tanzania and China and other countries, that their experiences can be shared with us, and that can help us in developing the climate resilient and integrated network of roads, in particularly in the rural areas for farm to market roads.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you've given us a good picture of your province and also of the types of challenges that you're facing, right? It feels a little bit like the myth of Sisyphus, where you keep having to recreate the same road network that you had already built in the past, but because climate change is accelerating and because the floods are coming thick and fast every few years, they are wiping away a lot of the efforts that you put in the past. So how to design better, right, to make the system more resilient, how to also ensure that you think about the development impact of the investments you're making is going to be really important. But then also, I think you mentioned the women and the inclusiveness of the use of the asset, and that I think is a theme that we can turn to with Abby. Abby, I would like you to draw maybe on Fika's experience as we think about, hard to reach geographies, right? So we were seeing that village that our colleague from China, thank you, sir, showed us earlier that had very difficult access to mountainous areas. But you can also think of some communities that are having particular access difficulty: women, elderly, persons with disabilities, maybe indigenous peoples in some places. So how do you embed their needs in the design of the road network? How do you do it in a way that is not just climate smart, but also is inclusive? Maybe, Abby, you can give us your perspective on that.
Of course. I think what was shared by my two co-panelists, very familiar to us at Fika, very recently known as Bridges to Prosperity, in case you knew us in a previous life. But
what does Fika stand for, by the way? You should tell everyone.
Yes, it's not an acronym. It's in Swahili, it means to arrive, with the connotation of arriving safely. And so we used to be primarily bridge builders. We're still huge advocates of bridges, but we do now much more than bridges, including working with government and local private sector to assess, plan, design, build, fund, and maintain rural transport infrastructure.
So you're all about rural safaris then?
Rural farm to market,
yes.
To be honest. But to answer your question, I think there are two big pieces there and two practical solutions. One is to not assume that you have good data or all the data, particularly when you're designing for the rural context. There is a massive dearth of good data in the rural areas. And even when it's coming from a good or very reliable source, it's often incomplete or incorrect. A really good example of how this manifests is 2 years ago, we worked with an organization called Better Planet Laboratory to triple the world's mapped waterways. So let that sink in. Number of waterways mapped in the world tripled because we found that in some areas where we were doing field-based needs assessments, 60%, up to 60% of the confirmed water crossings, so the confirmed bridge locations where we were building, weren't on mapped waterways.
Right.
And so you think about the implications of that here in, at that point, 2023, we don't know where all the water is. How do you plan effectively from a transport perspective if you don't know where the rivers are, particularly for farming communities and particularly for vulnerable communities? I don't think it's a coincidence that the places where we found most of that missing water were in places where people are very poor and have very little power. And so as we are making these decisions to plan, really digging into the sources of your data and making sure that there are participatory planning processes for how you are designing rural transport programs and making those investments, I think is really, really critical. Mm-hmm. And we've learned a lot. We're doing the same thing with routes right now, right? So it's the same idea where we know where the big roads are. We don't know how farmers are traveling from their homes to those roads, right? Those are not mapped at all.
And you know that data point that might be helpful, since you're talking about data, is that there's about 1 billion people, rural people, that live more than 2 kilometers or a mile and a bit away from all-season roads, right? So that's a huge amount of people. That's a sixth of humanity that are more than 2 kilometers away from a road that you can pass on whatever the weather.
Precisely. And that figure we get to using frankly incomplete data.
Right.
And I would say that our field assessments and our digital tools have indicated that it's probably significantly underestimating the people that have inadequate transport access. And I think that the second practical thing that governments can do is they're considering how to make their transport plans and investments more inclusive, is to not underestimate the value of those rural investments. I think Mr. Liu said it very well. If you want to get rich, build a road. There is not question about the fact that building infrastructure is good for economies, right? What we didn't have a lot of evidence for, and what we ran into a lot as an organization, is the assumption that it is not worth investing in rural areas. It is too expensive. Not from a humanitarian perspective, but it's just not cost effective to do.
Standpoint.
Right. Yeah. This is not where you spend your money. And so we have done some extensive research and have found that that's not true, that it is very worthwhile investing in rural areas. And while the majority of people live in urban areas, we know that 80% of people coping with extreme poverty live in rural areas.
Right.
And so, and not for nothing, those are the people growing our food. And those are the people probably most vulnerable to climate change. And so what we found is just with trail bridges, so this isn't even accounting for other investments like trail improvements or feeder roads or anything like that. Just with trail bridges, we saw up to a 75% increase in farm profits, 30% increase in household income as a combination of both labor market income and farm value. Huge increases in terms of people switching to cash crops because they have reliable access.
Yes.
Which changes behaviors, which is quite interesting. And then also a 60% increase in women entering the labor market. And so if you're talking about accessibility for vulnerable populations, agency and reliability and choice are very key to that.
For sure.
And so not underestimating the value of that, and also not assuming that you have all the information and all the data that you need to make good decisions.
Very interesting. So it reminds me at the beginning of my career, I was working on a public expenditure review in Burkina Faso, and we were looking at transport as one of the sectors. But objective of a public expenditure review is to look at, okay, how is the government spending the money and what impact is it having? Is it efficient? Is it effective? And what we found is that it's very similar to what you're saying, that there was a bias by default in putting the little money that Burkina Faso had onto the big feeder roads, right? The big highways between the capital and the main cities, and the things that were visible to ministers, right, and to the politicians and to the public in the big urban centers. But if you looked at the comparison of $1 invested in that versus $1 invested in piste rurale, in the rural roads and in the access to market, of course, it was much more cost effective to be working on a trail that was very cheap to do, but actually provided service to a large community of rural farmers and allowed them to access to market. But then in the political economy of the choices that you make, you have no big road that you can cut the ribbon on, right? Then you're dealing with a large number of small, fairly low visibility investments, but that can have a lot of impact.
And I think our position is do build the road.
Right.
But what we're talking about, the kinds of investments that we're talking about, are actually much cheaper.
Correct.
They're very inexpensive relative to
Can you give
transport.
Can you give an order of magnitude actually of what we're talking about? What's the cost of the kind of trail bridges you're talking about?
Yeah, so I think Ansu in her slides in a little bit will show sort of the type of trail bridges we're talking about. But our average is right around $100,000. And so
that gives you what?
Year-round access.
Year-round access, right?
Yes, for up to a minimum in Rwanda, Ethiopia, for example, of 20,000 people.
Right.
Right, and so the ROI on that is significant.
Yeah.
And you're comparing that to $500,000, $1 million a kilometer for a rural road.
Right.
And it feels like an easy decision.
And of course, it's a matter of balance. But in the equation, I think that's a really powerful data point to bear in mind. Very good. And thanks for also emphasizing the importance of participatory planning, working with the communities to identify where is the investment going to have the biggest impact? They know what they need. And if you have the right kind of dialogue with them, an inclusive dialogue with them, you tend to get to the good investments that also improves their willingness to maintain the assets over time if they've been involved in the decision making. That's certainly been my experience. I don't know if you agree with that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that that's a huge part of it, and I don't think participatory planning is a new concept.
No.
Certainly not to the World Bank, and certainly not to most people in this room. I think we just don't have that muscle memory in rural transport planning, and it's something that I think is easy to develop and frankly not
And cheap.
expensive.
Yeah.
It's not expensive. Yeah.
Very good. All it takes is a bit of time. Humphrey, let me come to you because Tarura is also another agency that has dramatically expanded Tanzania's rural network. You've boosted all-weather access. Tell us the story, how that happened. What were the critical institutional decisions, the reforms? What can Pakistan and other countries learn from Tanzania's experience? And to what extent was that influenced by, the agricultural priorities that your country it was focusing on? I was mentioning cashew earlier. Tanzania has developed cashew production and processing quite a bit these past few years. That's just one of many commodities that you're developing. So obviously, transportation is a key part of success in that area. Please, over to you.
Thank you so much. So I think I should start with the what exactly happened in Tarura. Tarura was established in 2017. So for the first 4 years, we didn't do very much well, and it's because of the funding flow was not really good by then. But then we did an kind of an analysis of evaluating ourselves, like knowing ourselves, like
self-assessment.
Exactly, yeah. It's just like your body, when you are not feeling well, and you know what to tell the doctor when you go to see the doctor in times when you don't feel okay. So we did evaluate ourselves, and we found some weaknesses that as an agency we have. We also identified some strengths and some external factors that can contribute to our performance, right? So if I should mention a few on the weakness, it was more on the limited financing, the funding. Yeah, we didn't have enough funding, and still it is the problem. But we also have a challenge on the human resource. Yeah, and the other thing which is very critical is on the road asset management system, which we are now developing. But to come back to your question, what we have done, it's just because we embarked on the strength that we have. One is the institutional structure. We looked at we are managing a network of 144,000 kilometers, of which 77% is rural. Only 23 is urban. At the same time, 70% of the population lives in the rural areas.
Right.
While only 26% of the GDP is contributed by the rural communities.
Yes.
So the numbers does not tally here. Like the bigger part of the population lives in the rural,
yes,
and it still contributes a very little in the GDP.
And you know what? That's not atypical of a lot of developing countries. Certainly in sub-Saharan Africa, in South Asia, we see a lot that situation.
So we had to establish an institution that has offices in all the districts. So we have engineers, we have established offices in all the districts. And why we did that? It's because we wanted to bring people closer to our office. And these managers in the districts, we have got around 147 districts. And we have managers in all the districts. These works together with the regional administration, everyone in the region. And it's very easy for communities to come close to our offices whenever there is a complaint, whenever there is a concern. So for that alone, we have institution-wise, and we also have the regional offices, 26 regions. So the regional office, and we have the district offices, and also we have the headquarters. The headquarters receives the issues that really are very critical, that could not be solved by the regional office and could not be solved by the district. That is strength number one. And the strength number two is on the the government support.
Right.
We have got a very good government support. In 2021, when we realized our weaknesses, the government tripled the budget for Tarura 3 times, and before we had around 80 million US dollars per year. You can imagine 80 million managing a road network of 144. It's really,
That's not many microcents per kilometer.
exactly, yeah. So at least now we are receiving around 250 million US dollars, which is really helpful, and it has really helped us in reaching the goals that we. And the other thing is we have got a public support. With the little that we have been really engaging with the communities, knowing their critical challenges, and using the little money that we are getting to address their challenges.
So tell us what you've achieved in that.
So far we have achieved, one is the rural accessibility index. We have achieved to at least now 61%.
From a baseline of?
It was around 2, I think it was about around 2 when we were establishing the Tarura. It was really very, very low. Now we are around 61%, right? And also we have also support from the development partners as well, the World Bank, the European Union. They have been supporting, and it's because they have done an assessment and know that Tarura is really doing very well. And there is a lot of projects that we are now implementing, including the RISE project, which is addressing a lot of challenges in the rural areas. And in this project alone, we have done a project of one of the components is addressing the bottlenecks in the rural areas. We have addressed 130 bottlenecks, and the impact is tremendous.
Right.
Right now, we are talking about 290 markets that were not accessible by the people in the rural areas. Just for addressing 130 bottlenecks,
yes,
more than 2 million people are now accessing the 290 markets that could not be accessed. And leave alone the schools, more than 450 primary schools, more than 200 secondary schools, hospitals, dispensaries, health centers. They are now accessible just by addressing only the 130 bottlenecks. While the request that we had was more than 700 bottlenecks.
But you had to prioritize.
We had to prioritize. The other things that I was going to talk about is the prioritization methodologies that we are applying.
Please go ahead, yeah.
And that one is based on, we have some match criteria data. And the one that we are prioritizing in that one is we have population.
Yes.
We have agricultural productivity or the agricultural potential. There are areas that are their agricultural potential, but their productivity is very low. It's just because of the accessibility.
Right.
Right. And we also have traffic. The rest comes later. If you look at the population, we look at the agricultural productivity, and we also look at the connectivity. Like this is a road that goes to an agricultural potential area.
Right.
Does it really connect with the regional and trunk roads?
Right.
Because we have the main highways. We focus more on the roads that can easily, in Tanzania, the main market is in Dar es Salaam.
Of course.
So we normally look at the roads that are directed to the main
the capital. Yes.
Exactly, yeah. So if there is a road that goes to a very agricultural productive area,
yes,
we prioritize on the basis of making sure that this road connects to the main road.
Correct.
We cannot improve a road that ends nowhere,
Yes.
yeah, we look at connectivity as one of the
Yeah.
key factor.
And for your agricultural productivity and potential data, do you rely on the Ministry of Agriculture to provide you that information, or
Yes.
how does that work?
Yes, we requested information from the Ministry of Agriculture.
Yeah.
And they gave us in a priority order.
Yeah.
Which district, for instance,
Yes.
is more productive than the other one.
Right.
In terms of productivity.
Right.
But we went further and looked at districts that are not really, because Ministry of Agriculture looks at the numbers.
Yes.
The tons of agricultural
The
produce.
yield or whatever. Yeah.
Right. But from the bottom, we know there are some districts that are really potential.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it might be that because they don't have access
They
to
don't
market,
have access. Exactly.
that's why they're
Their
not
roads
productive.
Are very poor. And
yeah. What's the
that's why-
chicken and what's the egg in this case,
Exactly,
right?
yeah. So in that case, we also look at that as well.
Yes.
Once we identify those roads, I mean the districts, we go deeper into identifying the roads now that connects to really areas that are productive.
Very interesting.
And then we connect with the main roads, and the rest is
Execution.
exactly. So that is in brief on what really we have achieved.
Wonderful.
And in 2021 we had I've said it already, we have a strategic plan that
Yes.
looked at more of upgrading, opening roads, but now we have shifted.
Mhm.
The 2031
Mhm.
strategic plan
Mhm.
is more on institutional strengthening plus the maintaining of the value, the asset value.
The maintenance,
Exactly.
really important.
Because we have done quite a good job, and I can tell you we have reduced earth roads by 17,000 within the 4 years, and we have upgraded 15,000 kilometers from earth to gravel. But then only 3,000 kilometers that are paved so far.
Yes.
So at least we have done something between 2021 up to 2025.
Yes.
Right? And in that way, then we are coming into now maintaining them. I think that is one of the most important, and you have talked about the routine maintenance models that we are applying. I think we will discuss.
We will.
As we go, but that is the way to go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Humphrey. Very enlightening. Let me turn to you, Ansu. I'd like you to share Track for Change's experience. You work across a large number of different environments. From your perspective, which governance and delivery models work the best for rural connectivity and have the greatest potential for replication, particularly when it comes to supporting agricultural development? What are the key components for success? You can build on the experience that Humphrey just shared and maybe add your own gloss on it. So please, over to you.
Thank you, Renaud, and good afternoon. So just to add some context in order to answer this question better, I would like to share that Track for Change, we build trail bridges as well. But more importantly, we support governments to build the system, the ecosystem surrounding trail bridge construction. And where we're coming from is in Nepal, where I'm from, where we've built 10,000 trail bridges. So this is a huge number. And thank you for that. We're extremely proud of this fact. Also because 1 million people use them daily.
Right.
So this is like in rural areas. And some of the main reasons why people are using these bridges is to access not only markets, but also farmlands.
For sure.
Because during the monsoon, they're even cut off from their farms.
You have a few pictures in your presentation that show the impact of what you're doing. Having traveled to Nepal, I can see just how rugged the terrain is, right? And obviously there are lots of mountains, lots of rivers, lots of opportunities for trails to get cut off, right?
Exactly, but also in the flatlands.
Yes.
And this is our experience. We first thought that they didn't need any trail bridges in the flatlands, but we've since then come to realize a mistake that yes, people there also need them. And what we see is that in terms of the impacts, especially for agriculture,
Mhm.
they're quite significant.
Mm.
So some of them being the fact that because you have year-round connectivity,
Mhm.
but also reliable access, we see that there's a decrease in the price of commodities in the villages
Mhm.
once a trail bridge is built.
Mm.
The other very important aspect, and which I would like to emphasize, is just the psychological and the motivation that farmers get once they know that they have a reliable access to the markets. So they can plan, months ahead about what to invest in and what they can sell their goods and gain an income. So this we found to be something nuanced, but very, very practical, and is a very big motivation for farmers. Overall, we see that there is an increase in income for household. These are rural households, up to 22%, very significant. Here, one reason is because of agriculture production,
Mm.
but also we have to take into account that agriculture, while being the main income source, there is another one in Nepal especially, which is wage labor.
Mm.
So because you have this connectivity to other villages, and the fact that maybe a man or even a woman can go to a village nearby and do wage labor, come back the same day, means that he or she actually can earn higher incomes.
Mhm.
So these are the things that we need to understand when we think about rural access.
So how did you go about building 10,000 bridges?
That is an excellent question, which I'm dying to actually answer. So if I could request you to go to the first slide. So this is a snapshot of what Nepal achieved in 50 years.
Mhm.
And the way we understand this is that Nepal went through 3 distinct stages or pathways to reach 10,000 bridges. So the first distinct one is demonstration phase.
Mhm.
And this is when Swiss and Nepalese engineers pioneered a new alternative design.
Mhm.
So before it was done centrally, the bridges were planned and also built. These were much more costly and the
Mm.
outputs were low.
Mm.
So they were not nearly enough to address the demand, which was in
And
the
not
south.
tailored to the actual condition of the
Exactly.
ground.
So what happened was in the 1990s, with Swiss support, and this is the catalyzing part, the
Mm.
demonstration part, a new alternative design was pioneered.
Mm.
This focused on utilizing the rural skills in the villages,
Mhm.
but also the materials that were available.
Right.
It was much more affordable.
Yeah.
It was replicable
Yeah.
in a mass level, and also very much scalable as well.
Mm.
And the important thing was for farmers who have waited decades for a bridge, it could be constructed within 2 years.
And with the community participating.
Exactly, through community participation, which actually then led to employment generation in the
Mm.
local communities as well. So this was a win-win for the government, for the communities as well.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that because Nepal is also well known for very successful network of community participation and involvement in forestry
Exactly, yes.
and also in water resources management at the local level.
I would say, like in the 1990s, there was this wave of projects and programs that emphasize community led
Yeah.
development efforts, and we also sort of latched onto it and encouraged incorporated into trail bridge building.
Mm.
And this actually in Nepal is quite very, very successful.
It's very successful, and not only did it build bridges, I think you doubled your forest surface in that same period. You're one of the few countries that actually, not only you didn't engage in deforestation, you actually increased your forested areas.
Wow, we were very familiar with Nepal, I can see. Yes, that's correct. Also, in terms of water supply,
Correct.
that is also another success in Nepal. But back to bridges.
Let's go back to the bridges.
So over here, what we see is that we had the demonstration phase, and here, what is important is to understand what the needs of the communities are. So what I would like to emphasize, and this is where the agriculture part comes in, when we first had these bridges, they were much more narrow because they were for pedestrians. But as these bridges began to be built, what we realized is that people are, taking, we call them dokos. These are like baskets to where people put their goods to take to the markets. But because the bridges were so narrow, they had difficulty passing through. So we ended up increasing the width of the bridges.
Right.
This was for a couple of years. Then we realized that mobility in Nepal is increasing from pedestrian to bicycles to motorbikes.
Mhm.
This is what the next stage is. So we again redesigned our bridges to incorporate and accommodate this type of mobility.
And the passing of motorbikes.
For the passing of the motorbikes, it was in terms of the width of the decks, but also the ramps leading up to the bridges, which previously was not a part of a design. Now, what we see is that three-wheelers. So in many places, including the flatlands and the hills, there are three-wheelers. So we've now increased the width further. And three-wheelers are very important, especially for farm-to-market
Yes.
access, because, you know, they
You
decrease.
take your cargo, your crops,
Exactly.
your, you know.
Exactly. So we see that there is an evolution and that we need to adapt ourselves in order to address it to be relevant, let's say. So this is the demonstration phase, just start. What I would really like to emphasize is the system building, because you can go and build a bridge, like this is what we used to do, Helvetas, but it's really about building the ecosystem or the system surrounding trail bridge building. That is really going to give you the 10,000 bridges.
Right. As well as the maintenance, I would assume, right? So if the community has been involved in the determination, not just of where to put it, but also how to build it using the local materials, the local knowledge, etc., then presumably they have more of a stake to maintain it and to ensure that, you know, the next monsoon doesn't wash away the bridge, or that if something goes into disrepair, something is done about it, no?
Here, I would like to say that Nepal's experience is that you need to be a bit more structured, because it's nice to think that, oh, the community has built the bridge, they have ownership, and hence they will, you know, maintain it. But that does not work in real life. You need to have something in place. So we tried different models. I'll tell you about one that did not succeed first. So it was the Bridge Maintenance Committee that was established. So these committees are established because we build bridges through the community approach. We call them user committees. So after a bridge is built, what we did initially was convert them into the Bridge Maintenance Committee with the idea that, okay,
they will look after it.
But it did not work.
Right.
But what did work was that once we actually designated one person within a community for maintenance, also provided some training and the tools, and also linked him or her with the government system in terms of nominal remuneration yearly, that really worked.
Yes, and the issue you're facing otherwise is that it's a collective action problem.
Exactly.
Right. So, you know, if everybody is responsible, then no one is in charge.
That is exactly our learning, that we need to have someone dedicated. Sure, you could have a community that's monitoring, supervision, but you need to have that person there over there.
And that has worked.
That has
in
worked.
terms of maintenance.
Yes.
And you monitor it, I guess, on a
the government monitors it.
Right.
Yes.
Very good. So lots of good learnings from Nepal. And, you know, some aspects might be specific to Nepal, particularly, you know, the strong community engagement, as we were discussing, you know, it's valid in many different areas. And, you know, it also is linked to the history of your country and to, you know, the social fabric. But it actually has many parallels, I'm sure, in Tanzania, in Pakistan, you know, in many sub-Saharan African countries, communities play a very, very critical role, right, in understanding what is needed, but also in participating in how to deal with this. I wanted to go back to you, Mohammed, to first get your reaction from what you've heard from the panel. And then to see if there's anything else you wanted to contribute in terms of a resilient design, because you were talking about the impact of the floods, right, on your network. How can you avoid, you know, having to rebuild the same infrastructure 3 or 4 times over, right? Have you come up with some engineering tricks or some nature-based solutions that can help to reduce the likelihood that your infrastructure is going to get washed away over time?
It is said that necessity is the mother of invention. So that necessity is compelling us to come up with the new ideas and new design for the roads and other structures. For that, the engineering departments always sat and we consulted the planning and development department. Even we consulted the experienced consultants, how we should go ahead and build a climate resilient infrastructure. For that, we have prioritized the areas and identified the areas which are the most vulnerable and which are the safe. So for keeping that in our mind, we have designed our roads. As far as the roads in the right bank of the Indus, which is touching the mountainous areas and that receives hill torrents and which come with the force and wash away the roads. We have included a number of culverts, bridges, and causeways. Before that, that was not the situation.
Yes.
We just built the road and there was no little provision for the causeways and bridges and culverts.
Yes.
Now that is actually saving us from repeating that construction activity
Yes.
of the road. Similarly, in low-lying areas are the areas where the road passes through the wetlands or watery areas. We are raising these structures so that it should not disturb the flow of the traffic and it should not harm the road. And we are adding the stone pitching with the embankments and so that is actually saving us from repeating our effort.
Wonderful.
That was done after due deliberation at very senior level, at the government level. And we consulted even the partner agencies, as we are having two projects of ongoing projects. One is funded by the World Bank and the other is funded by the ADB. Their teams also visited on ground and they also came up with good suggestions for us, which has helped us. And I believe in future we will be avoiding to reconstruct or reinvest on those roads. But the challenge for us now, as we are adding upon the number and kilometers of roads, that has inherent maintenance cost and
For sure.
issues which are coming up now. It is getting old, the infrastructure is getting old. For that, we have initiated a process of generating resources from the road assets.
Right.
We are trying to use it as an asset. As I am sitting over here, before coming over to this meeting, this conference, I submitted a proposal to my government and selected 4 roads for imposing toll and introducing axle load regime.
Yes.
And
derive revenue from it that you
for
can use for
deriving
maintenance.
revenue for from those roads, because these are very valuable and important assets. And if we are imposing toll, that actually educates people also.
Right.
That whatever facility we are using, we have
Exactly.
to pay for that also. So that's proposal is in the pipeline. Hopefully, before the end of this financial year, we shall be able to get it approved and impose the toll on those roads. It has so many proposals. It generates funds from access to roads, advertising, and fines if anyone harms the road unauthorizedly. There are fines proposed in that. This is the proposal that if there's a large inter-district road having more than 60 kilometers, 50 or 60 kilometers, we have a proposal of giving that maintenance also to the person who is winning that contract,
Right.
and adding the feeding roads with that up to 5 kilometers either side. So those roads should also be maintained by those resources, and so the government should not be investing again and again.
Very good.
So-
Yeah, so I think that there are a number of mechanisms like this that you can put in place to have more financial
In addition,
sustainability.
that we are, I must claim that we are pioneers in public-private partnership in our country and even in the region. We are encouraging the private partnership also in that. And we have completed several schemes in public-private partnership mode in our province. But that is actually helping a lot us.
Of course.
That is reducing the pressure upon
the fiscal.
fiscal pressure on the government.
Yes, and many governments are trying to go in that direction, and certainly we want on the World Bank Group side to help them think through how to do that properly. Look, we have about 15 minutes left in the panel, and I want to open it up to questions from the floor. If any, do line up. If you have some, there's a mic here that we can pass on. Maybe Federico or Dominique, you can keep that. In the meantime, while people are coming to the mic, I wanted to go to you, Humphrey, for your reaction to what you heard from Ansu or anything else on the particularly on the maintenance and how you're involving the communities. What model has worked, what hasn't worked, and what lessons are you learning?
Yeah, thank you very much. One thing that I wanted to say is on the people, the community-based routine maintenance model that we have established right now. It's just 3 weeks ago, we signed 5 contracts with the groups. And we have designed this because of the nature of our roads network, right? And it is based on the principles, one being a group of people formulated within 5 kilometers within a radius of 5 kilometers from the road. It must be a group of people within the community residing within a radius of 5 kilometers. And then we look at the roads that are in fair and good condition that can be maintained by the groups. But also it has to be done by teams. Like it is a team. It's not like individuals. Like must be a team, and this team must gain a training on the same standard maintenance, like maintenance standard that has to be maintained, right? And also these teams have to also receive some trainings on entrepreneurship, on financial management, because that is only that way they can sustain the group and their livelihood. And within the 5 groups that we have signed the contract, one is the group of border.
Yeah.
They're around 15 border. You know border, right?
Yes.
So they have divided themselves. At some point, a part of the group goes to maintenance of the road. They can spend like 4 hours a day or 5 hours. And then when they come back the following day, other group goes while this, that is how they do. And we pay them monthly.
So they do get remuneration.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. We pay them monthly.
Yeah.
We do, it's a performance-based contract, kind of, yeah. So our team just visits the sites, they inspect the sites, and in the end, they give some scores that the drainage are clean, the grasses, those kind of routine maintenance activities. Then you pay them in the end, you pay the team, and then they know how they distribute themselves within
they figure it out. Yeah.
Yes. So now we have managed to recruit 302 groups.
Okay.
Yeah, and these groups will do 1,500 kilometers this year. And next year we are scaling up to 7,000 kilometers.
Right.
We expect to have groups of around 1,500 groups. And by year 2020, end of year 2028, we are expecting to scale up to 22,000. At least by then, we're going to have more than 4,500 groups. And just within this first phase, we are expecting to have a generated employment of around 15,000 people.
Yeah, it's very significant. So, and is it men and women, or is it mostly men?
It's no. It's men and women, and there is a criteria because these people have to tender for the work.
Yes,
there is many groups, but they have to tender for it.
Right.
And one of the criteria is the team composition, men and women. And I can tell you, after the training that we have done, the sensitization, we have got more than 60% women, and only 40% is men. And they are doing a very great job so far, the ones that we have signed. the
Mm.
contracts.
And obviously you'll be monitoring and learning as you go. Right?
Exactly. And to start with, the government decided to buy the tools, the working tools. We have spent around 183,000 US dollars just to buy those small tools to assist them to start with, right? Then later there will be, after they start receiving some revenues, they can buy themselves. Yeah. That is how we plan to sustain, and this has to be embedded in the annual budget of the agency.
But it's a cost-effective way to do the
exactly, and that's why I talked about the institutional structure. We have a very strong institutional structure, and those managers in the districts, they are the ones who comes up with the budget. Like when they propose a budget, they have to include routine maintenance groups in their budget, so that the national budget covers a certain portion of the maintenance budget done by the groups. That way, we think it will be sustained.
Well, institutionalizing it is critical, right?
Yeah.
To ensure that. Please.
Sorry, Reno, if I could just take this opportunity, because by some coincidence, Humphrey from Tarura is here, and we've just recently launched a Trailbridge program in Tanzania, in Morogoro. So I would just like to take this opportunity to say, like, we are really excited about Tanzania, and mainly because we've also had experience a very successful Trailbridge program, which we are working and partnering and implementing with FICA in Ethiopia. So for us, like Africa, there is so much potential, and roads are great, but we also need bridges for that last mile connectivity.
Yeah, the pitch is there. Very good. All right, let's see if we have any takers. Yes, I see a question here in the front. Please.
Hi, I'm with WRI. So one question is about, we just had this plenary 5 where they were talking about the futures of digitalizations. So I was thinking, like with remote sensing and satellite data set, there's a lot of opportunities for identifying tree canopies and growth. I don't know if you have seen any of these techniques or approach used in rural roads, and looking at the traces and then trying to identify where you might be able to do more on those. Thank you.
Yes, maybe Abby, you want to take this?
Yeah, I'd love to. So our water detection model relies a lot on remote sensing, but what we found is that the publicly available data, because whatever we do needs to be scalable globally, right? So we found that there was a lot that we could do if we bought a lot of high resolution remote sensing data for a particular region. What we want to do is be able to have available for free for any government in the world the resources and the data that they need to make smart planning decisions. And so that means relying on remote sensing data like Landsat, for example, right? And so basing whatever we're doing on that data, and then also community-oriented or community-originated data, and then community validation, which is a big piece of that as well. So we're very familiar with remote sensing. It's a big piece of our toolbox, but we have found that scalable solutions, sometimes what might exist and work very well in an urban environment or in a very data-rich environment is not scalable in the rural context. And that's how you end up in these situations where we were missing so many of the world's waterways, was because there was an assumption being made that this was done and that we had the technology when we didn't.
Very good. Yes, please, Federico, we have an online question.
Coming from Eric Chen. Listening to the discussion, rural roads are often sound like isolated investments rather than part of a broader transport system. How can countries better integrate farm to market roads into national networks to strengthen supply chains and improve market access? And I would just like to complement as well from a little bit from my end. In transport planning, we very much towards like annual AADT and traffic flow, so on and so forth. And
AADT and
annual average daily traffic. Yeah. But I think like we lost a lot of the discussion once it comes to low volume roads, because there is no flow and our economic models are really driven by flow. So just to complement that, how can you bring that broader perspective, agriculture, income to local communities, tourism, so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, very good point. Who would like to take that? Maybe Humphrey, you want to start?
Yeah, I think during my first presentation, I mentioned about what we do at Tarura. We have a methodology, a prioritization methodology that looks at different aspects depending on the situation in the rural area that we are discussing. So one is the agricultural productivity.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we know exactly the areas that are agricultural productive, right? Very potential, and the ones that are more productive. We already know them. And we know the roads that connect to those areas. So in our prioritization, we look at whenever fund comes, we know exactly where to take the money.
Yes.
Yeah, we know where would the money go because we already know those areas.
And do you take tourism into account as well? Because Tanzania also has a large activity on tourism and national parks. And
yes. So the methodology is very flexible.
Right.
We talk of mining. There are some places where
Yes.
it's rural, but it's more of mining.
Yes.
It's rural. It's not necessarily being rural is agriculture, but in some places in our country is mining. So you have to also look at that. So it is very flexible depending on what you are targeting. Like if you are really targeting the mining, then you change the how do you call it, the scores or
the parameters,
you just change based on the on your need. So it is there. So if you want to do fishing, for instance, you look at fishing and then you change. This is what we want, if you know, depending on the government direction.
So it's that idea of an integrated plan really that is behind it.
Yeah. So we have that one, and we have the mapping showing the areas where it's more productive and the roads that connect the trunk and regional roads. So it's really taken into consideration.
And
For
of
us,
course,
it's very easy.
It's all underpinned by a geographic information system.
Exactly, yes.
Ultimately, that's your decision-making tool.
Exactly, yes. Exactly,
very
yes.
good.
We have a tool that we are using, yes.
Use the mic, yes. And we only have 4 minutes left, so I think...
our experience and perspective. I already mentioned a little about Tharpakar. The government invested less than $200 million for building the road infrastructure in that district. Its effect was that it is a desert, but it is called a friendly desert. It turns into a green desert when it rains.
So after the monsoon, it's
very
verdant.
It turns into a green desert. Before these roads, the people had very little access to reach those areas. What happened? That after that investment, we were successful in attracting more than $4 billion investment in coal sector. Okay, from that is FDI. So, and we are generating more than 2,600 megawatts to the national grid. Besides creating several jobs, and for sightseeing, it became very easy for the people to reach those areas. So that has given birth to tourism. You know? And in return, that tourism has created, several job opportunities. I've been there as a deputy commissioner, administrative head of the district. During monsoons, it is very difficult for the district administration to manage the traffic. People swarm to come over to see that greenery in that. So if it is coordinated, and now it is, I think we all, we do not have a way out to invest in patches. We have to integrate. We have to come up with the inclusive solutions for the community. That is the need of the time. There's no other way. So it is now compelling governments and administration to think on these lines. And fortunately, the floods and these natural disasters have compelled us to think upon that, and we are.
Very good. Thank you so much. I think that's all. We have time for one last word from each of you. Maybe I'll start with you, Ansu. Any final word from you?
Just picking up on what we just discussed about integrated development. It really is, it needs to be integrated from our perspective. We cannot lose sight of the fact that there are 1 billion people who do not have access to reliable roads, but also services and opportunities. So my call to action would be, let's include bridges, trail bridges as a part of these integrated projects.
Wonderful. Abby?
I also want to add to the conversation around the importance of integration and integrated, connected, networked transportation infrastructure. We are working on a collaborative participatory group that's looking at how do we build on the Rural Access Index to be able to make smarter, better decisions, measure progress year over year. And so I think at FICA, our little call to action is to come talk to us about our safe access scorecard. And we are convening a group of people like you to talk more about how to make better investment decisions using tools like this.
Okay, so the plea has been heard. Anything from you? Any conclusion? Please go ahead, Humphrey.
Yeah, just to conclude, I would like to invite everyone to Tanzania.
You've heard him.
There is a lot of opportunities there.
And 174,000 kilometers of road to observe.
Still not constructed. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Sir, one last word. It's on. It's okay.
Thank you. It's very nice. Well, my message is that we need to be having the inclusive development model, which primarily involves the women. So that will be a sustainable model for that. So like Tanzania, I shall request that visit Tharparkar, you will enjoy.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's put our hands together. Thank the panel. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.